organization is spearheaded by none other than our CEO and founder, Madhura ma'am. So really, really happy to have everyone over here. And on in the other news, we have a event partner with us, which is Style Nook. And Style Nook is a personalized recommendation service that makes it easier for women to purchase clothes and accessories they love and that flatter them. And they do all creating by your curated shortlist and of clothes and accessories. And they have like a data tool, build your unique style and profile that enables them to pick stylish clothes and accessories and that you can choose from, and hence making your shopping experience all personal and effortless and time saving. Definitely we have learned this over in the pandemic over 2 years, and the online business and the online shopping has gotten all over again. So definitely, everyone should stay tuned. We have an exciting quiz, and we have winners. Two winners is all that we select, and they will get 1,000 rupees voucher from Style Nook. And everybody who is a participant and is, staying with us throughout the event, we will have a coupon of 100 for everyone attending this event also. So very, very excited and definitely looking forward for a great learning. I hand it over to Madhura ma'am, to lead us forward.
Maria, that was lovely. I think this is the first session that you are moderating here at Aspire for Her. And this is a shout out to everyone who's here today to tell you that this is what we try to do at Aspire for Her every day. We try to ensure that members on our platform get an opportunity to speak with inspirational folks, to moderate sessions like this, to take leadership projects, and to ensure that they are the ones who are crafting the path forward for Aspire for Her, and not just a few of us. So it is my pleasure to welcome Navya and to welcome Apurva ma'am here. All of you have heard both their names in many different contexts, but it is so amazing to have both of them here today on our platform. It's our pride, it's our privilege, and a moment of utmost humility to really welcome both of you here. I will just talk a little bit about Aspire for Her because I don't want to take away time from the conversation that's going to follow. I'll keep it really, really short. We started Aspire for Her 18 months back on Women's Day. And I did that because I was very disappointed with the gender data that was coming out of India, and particularly the gender data on the women entrepreneurship side. So what did we do? We actually had worked on a research project, and we realized that after the first wave of the pandemic, the demographic that was worst hit was the working women. And among the working women, those that were the worst hit were the women entrepreneurs. And, when Navya and I started talking about this, what was a very, just a very casual conversation turned into something so much deeper. And we decided that we'll sit and we'll try and build a community of women who want to be entrepreneurs and women who are already entrepreneurs. And that's how Entrepreneury was born. The name took a lot of sleepless nights, and a huge shout out to Anuradha, our partner. I'm sure she's watching, for coining up this brilliant name, which everybody across, there she is, which everybody across India really recognizes as what we really want it to be. We do not want it to be exclusive. We do not want it to be only for women entrepreneurs. We want it to be all aspirants, for all classes, for all states, for all languages, for everybody who has that spark which is waiting to be ignited to become an entrepreneur. In India, only 3% of our country's GDP is accounted for by women entrepreneurs. Less than 1% of the funding. Yes, all these fantastic stories we hear of unicorns and funding actually finds its way to women entrepreneurs. I'm hoping that has changed over the last few days. We all know what I'm talking about, but it's that bad. Which is the reason why we thought that we need a framework, we need a community where women support each other, and where men come in as supporters and ensure that women's entrepreneurship becomes something that is truly aspirational for the girls of our country, for the young women of our country. So who better than Navya and Apurva to steer this conversation towards what it means for all of us. And we try to give opportunities like this to have inspirational folks come in and spend time with the members of our community in a very intimate fireside chat setting. This is exactly what we are doing. So thank you, Deepika. Thank you, Ruchita. Thank you, Maria, for putting this together. And I am hoping that the viewers here will go away with a lot more than they came back in with. It was wonderful to look at the entrepreneur narrative that we put out for Apurva. Your life story is an inspiration, and I'm sure that our young members will sort of want to ask you a lot of questions on that as well. So with that, I hand back over to you, Maria, and a warm welcome to all of you listening in, and of course to Navya and Apurva for what promises to be a firecracker of a post-Diwali evening. Thank you.
Quite inspirational, and definitely to know more about Aspire for Her, you can always reach out to us. I handed the session over to Navya ma'am, and you can take it forward from here.
Not ma'am at all. Please do not call me ma'am. But thank you so much, Maria and Madhura, for such a kind introduction. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation personally because, I have been following your work for a really long time. I've read your book as well. And I'm actually really excited to ask you a lot of questions that have not only come from the community, but that I have personally as well. But before we get started, I'll quickly introduce, Apurva ma'am to everyone. For those who already don't know about her, just a little bit about the work that she has done in the past as well and what she does today. But I think we all know that she's had, a stellar career, mainly in the media space, having been the president at Zee Telefilms, the CEO at Radio City, the director at Midday, Infomedia, and also president at Jagran Prakashan. So a lot, that she has kind of carried through in the media space. And, she's also an independent director with organizations such as L&T Technology Services and Mindtree. And she's also recently co-founded her own food venture called Azol. And of course, she is very vocal about gender diversity, and her mission is and has always been to motivate and encourage and inspire women to take more space in the professional arena. And if you have not read her two books, Lady You're Not a Man and Lady You're the Boss, then please do, because they were absolutely incredible. And I think everyone in this community would learn a lot and take away a lot from that. But thank you so much again for being here today with us. And I don't want to, take away any time from you and what you have to share with all of us. So I'm just going to dive into, the first kind of question that I also had, as a young woman who's just about starting off my own career personally, barely kind of being a year and a half into that. I'd love to know from you, what your early years from your career were like. How you made your career choices, because that's definitely something that not just young women, but a lot of young people struggle with, is, finding that one career path or making that choice, when they're just starting out. So how difficult or easy was it for you to find what you wanted to do? And, what were your early career days like?
Navya, you've bundled in a lot of questions in that one question. So let me try and attempt to answer all of them all together. So, remember that we grew up in the 70s and 80s when choices were fairly limited. Many of us were, children of government servants and lived in, those kind of secular environments where you moved from one army colony to another, one ONGC colony to another. And the way for all of us to move from, let's say, a middle class upbringing to having a career, etc., or a better lifestyle was really education. So education was the focus for all of us. And at that time, I think it was so much about get into an IIT, get into an IIM, and that's really your starting point. And indeed, that's what happened with me. So I passed out of IIM Bangalore and moved into a career immediately. Now, when I think about what I would like to remember from those days, which I can tell young girls who are listening to us today, Navya, is really 2-3 things. And the first one is that, for me, it was never about either or. And I feel so sorry today that many young women, despite having the talent and the skill, look at career almost as a stopgap till something else happens, till they get married, till they have a relationship. And I think that's very unfortunate, because it's not their fault. It's what society has drilled inside all of them. It's, you can either be happily married or have a successful career. It cannot be and that's the first myth I want to break in people's mind, that it has to be an and. It has to be career and family. And you can do and you will do well in both, provided it's not an either or in your own mind. I think that was the first thing. The second thing is that throughout the various choices I made in my career, I believe that I obviously put in a lot of hard work, but I also took a lot of risks, which many people don't do, and especially women, because we get into a comfort zone. We get into a space where everybody around us likes us. We are in a team where the team adores us, and we fought so hard to be in a space where we are liked, right? So women, girls, daughters have grown up being unwanted. And suddenly when you're wanted and loved and you're happy in that space and you don't move out of that space. But if you don't move out of that space, how will you not stagnate? So I think that's so important. And finally, the third point that I want to make is, this a little bit of a confused thinking that people operate in. How will I find what I like? How will I discover what I want to do? Now that I'm a little against this flitting and floating and saying, okay, let me try this for a year, then let me try this for another year, and let me figure out what I like, what I want. I'm a big believer in that you start liking what you're good at. And to be good at something, you have to put in a lot of effort. So I'll tell you, when I started my career, I was fascinated with this whole idea of building brands and advertising, communication, and that's what I got into. Over a period of time, as I grew and evolved, it became lesser about brand building and more about building businesses. And then and then you realize that while you're building brands, while you're building businesses, you're also good at building people, building leaders. And finally, if I look back, building leaders is what I have wanted to do, what I've liked, but that was not what I started off with. So you have to put in the effort to do certain things. And once you do certain things well, you will start liking them.
I think that was, you put that really well. And I think, like you rightfully said, a lot of people, when they're starting out, feel that they need to try a lot of different things to, then maybe realize, okay, this is probably what I want to do. But I think it's amazing that you said you should do what you're good at doing and love doing that, and I think that's something that we can all take away from that. But you have also actually a lot of times said that women are not stepping up and doing enough to maximize their potential. So I'd love to know why you think so, or why you feel that way, or what made you think that in that way.
So again, I think it's a lot to do with our socializing, right? So I keep on using this phrase that, we bring up our daughters to be lesser than what they are. You can't do this, you can't dress up, should not wear red lipstick, you should not wear short clothes. So we keep on bonsaiing them by telling them what they can't do. You're not good at STEM, you're not good at math. Oh, a girl, how will you drive? So, constantly this messaging is being put inside our brains, what we can't do. And I think that sort of minimizes us. And therefore, when we start working, or when we go out in a world which is, beyond our cloistered, safe family environment, we are far more tentative than we ought to be. And there is enough research, Navya, that talks about how when men of a, at middle management are asked, how many of you believe you can reach the top? Some 80%, 90% put up their hands. And when similar women of similar caliber, talent, skill are asked, how many of you believe you can reach the top? Some 50% only put up their hand. So the belief, the self-belief inside of women, which is again this socializing that has been done, that you're not good enough, you're here by luck, you just happen to be here because some mentor supported you. So we have this kind of a tentativeness and imposter sitting inside each one of us. And therefore, when opportunities come, when promotions come, when next roles come, when entrepreneurships come our way, we are hesitant to pick it up because of this tentativeness that is inside all of us. And that's the thing that I believe we first need to change before we start worrying about what the world is doing and what's happening outside. We need to look inside us and say, I need to be stronger, I need to be more confident, and then use whatever tools you can. Body language, I can do it. Mental muscle of choice, it is my decision. What I want to eat, what is the AC temperature in my house, what I want to watch on TV, what job I want to do, who I want to marry, it is my choice. Strengthening that muscle. Power dressing. Using style and substance to be more confident. I think this is what we all need to work at.
I think that's really interesting, because we often feel that to assert ourselves, it always has to be something that we do intellectually or professionally or, with knowledge. But I think it's great to hear you say that that's also something we can practice every day, even at home, and just being confident in the choices we're making, not just professionally, but also personally at home. And, how we sit, how we eat, how we walk, how we dress. I think all of that really plays a big role in that overall building of confidence. But I think, obviously you have now, been working for so long, and you've seen, your career span over so many different years and industries and, work that you have done. But what would you say were some, key ingredients that really helped you navigate, to the top? And an ingredient or ingredients that you would say that women should follow, to get to, where you have in your career or while they're navigating their career?
So I would say a couple of things that sort of helped me, and I'm happy to share the same with everybody. I think the first one is, we cannot get away from the fact, man, woman, child, whichever position, wherever you are, hard work is an essential. I don't think any of us have reached anywhere without the hard work that all of us put in. And, today we see the maybe the nicer cars that we drive in and the houses we live in very close to work, but all of us have grown up traveling 30 kilometers one way, being pregnant and 9 months and standing inside a local train where nobody else gives you a place to sit because they've gone through the same issues themselves, and reaching work. So I think that and then coming back and then cooking food at home, and then getting up the next morning and packing dabbas. I think all of us have gone through that. And only when you go through that hard work and you hope to get any kind of reward, outcome. The second thing I alluded to a few minutes ago, which is the willingness to take risks, willingness to grab opportunities. And here's one thing that I want to tell all young girls, which is that, we always imagine opportunity to come knocking at our door. It'll say, hey, Madhura, here's this great job for you. Hey, this is that great opportunity. But opportunity doesn't come like that. Sometimes it's whispers in your ear. Sometimes it's some person you meet at a forum such as this and say, why don't we catch up over coffee? Sometimes it's, have you explored doing this particular kind of a job? Sometimes it whispers in your ear. And because of all that noise around us, we are on the phone, we are doing 3 things at the same time, talking, listening to some video here and answering some email there, that we don't pay attention to these whispering opportunities. And I'll tell you, many times they don't come knocking, it will be a question that one ex-boss will pose to you. Why don't you come over and let's chat about this? And you say, I don't have time for all this. That's where you will find the opportunity. So I think that is one thing I did well. And finally, I would say that, you know, I've always had this desire to reinvent myself constantly and not be, you know, so I reinvented myself from an advertising professional to a media professional, from a media professional to a business head, from a business head to a group CEO. And now, you know, after working for 32 years in a career I loved and did well in, I left it to start an entrepreneurship at the age of 55, leaving everything behind to start from ground zero. So I think that is what all of us need to do, constantly reinvent, because that's the only way to grow.
I actually really liked what you said about opportunity. That's something that, you know, the women in my family always tell me as well, is that don't wait for that opportunity to come to you. You know, you have everything it takes to go out there and make it happen, you know, make the opportunity happen for yourself. So it's really great to hear you kind of reaffirm that and say that that's something that you've practiced. It gives us hope to know that, you know, if we may not get the right opportunities, but we can definitely make them happen for ourselves. And I think you've kind of, you know, spoken about a lot of these things in your books, and I, you know, having read them, and I would love for you to talk a little bit about, you know, the idea or the motivation behind writing these two books that were both very, very inspiring and motivating, you know, for professional women. So, you know, what was where did that idea come from? Where was the motivation, you know, where you decided that you wanted to pen this down and that you wanted to write these books for professional women?
So Navya, I think both the books came from a space equally of being a business leader and equally of being a woman leader. So as a business leader, every year I would recruit women in droves. I would, you know, go out and management trainees and trainees, 50% men, 50% women. I would push my organizations to recruit women. But unfortunately, I would see that between the, you know, they would enter the workforce with great enthusiasm and drive and the competitive spirit. But in the first decade, half of them were leaving. And they were leaving because, as I said, you know, marriage happened and children happened, and the guilt that accompanies leaving small babies crying at home happened, and so on and so forth. And that bothered me because, you know, as a business leader, I was saying that I'm losing so much of great talent. And I think that was not good for business communities. Remember, you know, at that time, nobody was talking of diversity and the reason for diversity and how diversity is a good initiative. I'm talking about 10 or almost 10, 12 years ago. But this was really perturbing that the professional world is losing good talent. And then from a woman leader perspective, when I looked at it, I realized that why is this happening? It's not that the women don't want to work. It's not that they don't have the desire, but there's nobody around. They don't have role models. They don't have anybody around to tell them how they can navigate this space. Why is it that why should they feel guilty and what can they do about that guilt? And therefore, both these books, and you've read them, are really coming from that lens of being like a practical guide. If there is a dual income at home, a dual career at home, how do you manage that? If there is a guilt that accompanies having a small baby and going to work, how do you manage that? How do you look for help in your ecosystem? Etc., etc., etc. So basically, both the books, in a sense, were written as a practical guide to help women navigate who did not have role models around them.
I think that I mean, I've, you know, having read your book, and everyone listening to this should go and read both the books written by you, because I think it does really help, like you rightfully said, navigate you know, your early professional career, especially for a lot of women who may not be used to you know, such an official setting in the workplace. And I think what you also said about encouraging, you know, companies and organizations to hire women, I personally believe in that also. But I also believe that sometimes a lot of organizations and companies just hire women for the diversity number or for the sake of hiring women, and I always say that there are so many incredible women out there who have such great potential, and the reason for hiring them should not be just to create that equality index that okay, we have 50% men and 50% women in the workplace, but genuinely for the talent and the ability that they possess, especially as business women and especially as professional career makers. And that's always something that I feel that organizations and companies should keep in mind when they are hiring women in their workplace. But speaking about professional careers, you also recently started your own venture, which is a food venture called Azul. So can you tell us a little bit about that and where that idea came from? Because you've really covered it all. You have really done everything there is to do. So I'd love to know where this idea came from, and why food. Where did you get that idea from?
So I think I started Azul for 3 reasons. And the first one really came from the space, not so much of food, but from this fact that, all of us look around and we see there is so much inequality in society today. Whether it is men versus women, whether it is the haves versus have-nots, whether it is in terms of people who manage to get education and people who don't, the urban-rural divide, the first world versus the third world. I think and in the last 18 months, this inequality only increased. And that started bothering me a lot. It always used to bother me a lot, but it started bothering me even more. And then I said, what is the point in having education, having resources, having so much experience, if I'm not utilizing this experience in some way or the other to reduce this inequality? Because we can't just sit here and then, one day hope that the universe will take care of it, or the government will take care of it, or a shining knight in shining armor as a leader will come and solve all the problems of the country and of the planet. Each one of us has to do something. So really this thought that I have to do something came from that angle. And I think all of us who are at a particular stage in our lives, we have been blessed. Now we have been blessed from what we started off to where we are today. We never imagined we would be in this kind of space. And I think it's important that somewhere we have to say, for me, this is enough. Now I need to do something beyond me. So that was the first reason. The second reason is, of course, women. It's my passion, it's my desire, it's my in a sense, a calling that I want to do something for women. And therefore I started looking around and saying, where can I help women? Which are the women? Is it professional women who need help? Is it women entrepreneurs who need help? And then I came across these women who are running self-help groups across our country, and the government is doing a lot to help the self-help groups set up. But unfortunately, nobody's doing anything to ensure that a market is created for whatever the self-help groups are producing. And that's when this whole thought of Azul and food came in, because the third thing all of us have discovered through the pandemic and the last 18 months is finally we have to look within. We have to look at local ecosystems. We have to look at what can we do to go back to our roots, to ancient wisdoms, and see how to build our immunity, our health. And local food was obviously something all of us realized is something that is important. So Azul basically is a food venture which works with self-help groups, creates a marketplace for them, and connects urban audiences with ancient and local foods currently of Maharashtra.
I think that is actually quite interesting, and especially, you being an entrepreneur after having such a long career and still deciding that, you want to start fresh, you want to create something of your own. I think that's exactly what we're encouraging through Entreprenari as well, is to remind women that there's no really age where, you can start a venture or a business. And if it's something that you're passionate about and you believe in, age doesn't have to be a factor to ever stop you from going ahead and following that. And that's actually exactly my next question, which is that, what advice would you give, Apurva, the president of Jagran Group, to Apurva today, who is a new entrepreneur starting out a venture of her own? Even though having such a long-lasting career and having succeeded at so many things, what advice would your old self now give to your new entrepreneur self?
I'm sure for so many of you who are thinking of this journey, have started upon the journey, startups, it's not easy, right? It's not easy to start from ground zero, start building something from scratch. It's so much easier to work in a already running setup. So naturally, even I, and after having run organizations at scale, to go back and start from a seed was difficult. Sometimes my legs would shake even thinking about the whole proposition. But what is that one bit of advice that I would give to any entrepreneur, me as an entrepreneur, and this reminds me of a very interesting something I heard Rahul Dravid say once. So, I heard him speak at one forum, and someone in the audience asked him, so Mr. Dravid, when you when you're playing out there and there is a ball coming your way, when you're ready to bat, what are you thinking at that moment? So he answered, he said that, at that moment, I'm not thinking anything. At that moment, I'm not analyzing, etc., because he's supposed to be a very thoughtful kind of cricketer, right? So I'm not analyzing, I'm not thinking. At that moment, the only one thing I'm doing is practicing trust in my abilities of being able to play the ball well, trust in my ability of having practiced to be able to play well, trust in my muscles that know how to play that ball. So practice trust. And I think that was such a wise thing he said. And I think that's what I tell myself, that yes, it is new for you. Yes, food is new for you. Yes, this ecosystem is new for you, but practice trust, practice, believe, and have trust in your 32 years of experience that you will be able to solve any problem that comes your way.
I think that's brilliant. And, as somebody who is also, a new entrepreneur, having started a venture myself, it is, a bit daunting at first. And, you do need that kind of conversation with yourself to really give you that push to take the plunge. So, what advice would you give to women, and not just young women, but, women of all ages who, may want to start a venture, but haven't taken that step yet? What advice would you give to them?
So, especially women who are starting off on an entrepreneurship journey, I think there are two bits of advice. One advice is that, and I see this because I do a lot of mentoring for young and older entrepreneurs, that again, it's that whole male versus female. A male will be 80% ready with his app or his platform, but he just goes out and launches it. A woman is 100% ready, but she keeps on tinkering and trying to say, no, it's not perfect. It's not perfect. So you will discover what to do. Launch. You get it 80% ready, go out. Don't keep on tinkering and waiting that one day the moment will be ideal. One day the product will be ideal. One day everything will be ideal. That's when you launch. Don't do that. Don't do it, because you'll discover, even if as you go along the journey, you'll discover what you have to change. So launch. That is the first advice. The second thing is, and again, this is a message and this is a mistake I see many entrepreneurs make, is they approach it only from that one lens of passion. It's my passion to do this, and therefore they go out and start something. Now, of course, passion is important. Of course, passion is the fuel that will keep us going. But unless there is a need gap, unless there is something that the universe, the ecosystem, the market requires, how do you expect to succeed? So don't get only fueled by your passion. Also think about whether the product, the service, the app, the platform that you're launching has a need gap in the market. Only then go ahead and start off.
I think that's very practical and very logical advice that you have shared. And I think also one of the biggest reasons that, a lot of people, and especially women, don't take that plunge is because they're afraid of a setback, or they're afraid that this may not work, or this may fail, or this may not go in the direction that they're expecting it to. And I'm sure that in your career as well, you may have had certain situations that didn't work in your favor, faced certain setbacks, and how did you handle that, and do you handle setbacks?
So I think there are 2-3 things that I do when I encountered by failure. One is that I go and sort of vent it out and discuss it with my couple of very close friends or my family. And my son is, by the way, my co-founder in Azol. So a lot of discussion, and through discussion, I think ideas come. The second thing is that I move very fast from looking at the problem or agitating over the problem to a solution mindset. So I think it's training that you need to give your brain, that, okay, this is a problem. Sometimes we just get so lost in the problem and keep on thinking and looking at the problem and, oh, ye mere saath kyun hua? Rather than quickly moving to figuring out, okay, this is a problem. What could be the possible potential solutions? So I think these are the two things. And finally, the last thing, which is my personal peeve against many people, is they spend a lot of time externalizing the whole issue. So there's a problem, there's a setback, and oh my God, fate was not with me. Oh my God, this one didn't support me. Oh my God, the economy tanked. Oh my God, competition did this, etc., etc. Whereas, and the more you externalize, the lesser you will be able to come up with solutions. The quickly you own the problem and say, okay, maybe there's something wrong I'm doing, the quicker your mind and brain will work in identifying a solution to it, because you are now owning it. You're saying, it's my problem. I have done something wrong. So the solution also comes from within. If you externalize, then you'll keep on waiting for the economy one day to improve. No.
I think that makes sense. And it also goes with, what a lot of people say is that, if you can't control something, then, why worry about it? And in similar situations, if it is a mistake that you have made, then you are in control of yourself. So, you can take those steps, to change whatever it may be, to fix the problem or move closer to a solution. But this kind of brings me to my last question, which is, more about just your view in general about, of course, we have seen now that, entrepreneurship, especially with women, the numbers are just extremely sad. And, I think that's a collective mission that we all are working towards, as women, and even at Entreprenari and at Aspire for Her, which is how do we, create an ecosystem for women where they feel motivated, inspired, to work or to start ventures or to be involved in this world of business. And what, according to you, would be, how can we create that kind of an ecosystem, and what is needed to really create and build a community or an ecosystem for women that would really encourage them, make them feel supported in the right way, whether that's, emotionally, or even, with all the tools that they need for their professional career. What would you say is needed to really create that ecosystem that will allow us to change and improve these numbers that we kind of, see currently today?
So, in my own organizations, people used to ask me that you believe so much in diversity, etc. So what have you done in your own organization? What are the various policies you've put in place, systems you've put in place to encourage diversity? And I used to say that, of course, I've done everything, flexi timing, this, that, and the other. But the single most important thing I have done is ensure that there are enough women at the top. Because the moment there are enough role models around us, young women feel empowered and energized. They look at an organization where there is no woman sitting in the boardroom or the ECM, and they say, this is not the place for us. I will beyond a point, there will be a glass ceiling. Equally, they look at another organization and say, my God, there are 30%, 40% women at the top. This is an organization that nobody's telling them. They get that message. This is the organization that encourages women. And I apply the same logic everywhere else, and I give the same message that the more women we see around ourselves, whether in entrepreneurships, whether in networks like Aspire for Her, whether in a boardroom, whether when we get onto a plane and they say that, you know, the pilot is it's a lady. We need to have more women in visible places. And that is, according to me, the best motivation for our young girls. So come what may, I just think that we need to ensure and push women to be vocal and visible, and to take up senior roles, more visible roles. So that we can do through forums such as this, that we can do through our personal mentorship. I mean, I do a lot of that, just pushing, you can do it, you can do it. I'm your cheerleader, you can do it. I think that's really what is required.
No, I completely agree with you. And I think that it's just that constant sense of, belief that you can do it. And I think a community that keeps reinstilling that belief is definitely what we all hope to create here as well. But thank you so much for, giving us such a great insight into really what it means to be, a working woman today, and having cleared all these doubts that at least I had in my mind before coming into this conversation. So thank you so much, and really, really appreciate you being here today as well. I'm going to pass it back to Maria now to take the quiz forward.
Thank you so much, Apurva ma'am and Navya. It was a fiery conversation, as I said in the starting, and we thoroughly, enjoyed this conversation. Definitely, how ma'am's, is inspired by Rahul Dravid. On that inspiration, I'm sure that 130 of us will quote BAM later in our days forward, because we have learned so much today. So on that note, as we spoke in the starting, we have a small quiz and we will have two winners. So the rule is that whosoever answers first can put their email ID in the chat box and the answer, so that we can find who the first two lucky winners are, and we can go forward. So are we ready? Can I have a thumbs up? Are we ready for this quiz? We will know if you were attentive enough to know. All right. So the first question is, which prestigious institute did Apurva Purohit do her MBA from? Wow, that was a quick answer. That's right. It's the correct answer. It is Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. So a lot of answers flowing already. And the second question is, what is Apurva's venture called? Wow, we have everybody in seconds writing in the answers. It's going to be a tough competition to select who was the first one. All right, yes, that's the answer. That's correct. We have two answers, two winners for sure for the questions, and it was a great session. Thank you so much. Before we leave, I will put in the coupon code for everyone who attended, and you can definitely go shop in Style Nook and redeem these cool coupons and have a fashionable week today. And before
let's
you
also
leave,
take some QA. Let's also take
yes,
some question answers. I think a few people had some questions that they put in.
yes.
So before we leave, Maria, let's also take some QA. Anybody who has questions can put it in the chat box.
Definitely, yes. Over to you, Apurva ma'am, for some questions.
Sure.
I think there's one question that Kanchan asked, but with all the answers that have kept streaming in, the question is kind of lost at the beginning. So I will read out a question. Kanchan, hi, lovely to see you here.
Fabulous to attend the session today, Madhura. I've been a big admirer of Aspire for Her, and also Entrepreneur program, which has been hosted regularly by Navya. Navya, you are an inspiration, very young, and we hope you'll go places. And fabulous to finally hear Ma'am Apurva today. I'm a big fan, ma'am, and hope to learn from many of the gems you have shared with us today. So hope to connect with you otherwise as well. Thank you.
I have a question actually. Yeah. My question is that how do you deal with setbacks? While I understand, you said that, take risks, and you also mentioned that, opportunities may come whispering, but sometimes there's a lot of setbacks. And while we glorify failure, it's actually not easy to accept failure or take setbacks. So how do you deal with setbacks?
So I answered a bit about that, but just to, I think two things we always need to keep in mind, that this too shall pass, right? Setbacks, good things, bad things, everything passes. So there will be failures, but there will be bad days. There will be moments that you're not doing or achieving what you intended, but over a period, but that passes. That's point one. The second thing is, and I want to keep on mentioning this repeatedly, that we have to, yes, I also don't believe in glorifying failure, but I glorify having a solution mindset. I keep on saying that, move quickly, as fast as you can, from problem to solution. Move quickly from saying, okay, this is an issue, but let me try out these 3-4 things and something will work. Something will work. Don't get so caught up in the glare of failure that you just are not able to move ahead. So keep pushing yourself forward all the time. And I'll tell you, there's nobody who's not gone through failure, no startup which has not gone through that typical curve that you start off well and then it goes down again, and then you have to, so perseverance, just being at it, trying to sort of tinker around, change few, navigate the direction a bit this way, that way, and you will cross any issue, any challenge.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Madhura, I just realized I didn't ask my question.
I know, I was wondering
Yes,
what
Kanchan.
happened. Yeah, I was wondering, you got a little overwhelmed, I think, so you didn't ask the question.
Absolutely.
Please ask the question.
Always, pretty jittery to face somebody as, who's got a reputation as good as Apurva ma'am. So my question was, ma'am, you have shared a lot of things which, women can do as entrepreneurs, as professionals. But I would also love to know, what more do you expect from the ecosystem, be it men, be it the system, or the politicians? Are there some of the things which you feel that should be done, especially in India, which are not being done?
So, when you look at this whole agenda of diversity, I think there are 3 constituents, right? One is the woman herself, one is men around her, and one is, let's say, the leadership, society, organizations, the ecosystem. And when I look at this, I think I would like to give because I've been watching this whole diversity story for the last 20 years, I would give the maximum points really to organizations, because they've done a lot. And to governments, the regulations, the reservations, the policy changes, maternity policy changes, the flexi timing benefits. I think organizations, because they recognized that, diversity was not, and Navya alluded to this, that a lot of organizations earlier just kept it as a ratio, that we need 50% men, 50% women. Over a period of time, organizations and ecosystems have realized that women contribute. There is a reason for diversity. It helps businesses prosper. And therefore, they did a lot of good to encourage gender equality. It's really women and men now who have to sort of step up. And women have to step up from, the point that I've made earlier about building their own confidence. Nobody is going to come and tell you that, look inside your heart and see how tentative you are. You have to push yourself. You have to say, I can do it. I'm the heroine of my story. There is no fairy godmother. There is no Prince Charming. I am my fairy godmother. I am my Prince Charming. So you have to take the reins of your life in your hand. That's one bit. I equally believe that increasingly men have to become allies. And not men at the workplace, because again, they are doing a lot. It's the men in our homes. As we are becoming hunters, our husbands becoming nurturers. And I think somewhere we have to push them. You know that during the pandemic, there were women working from home, but they took up 70% of the housework, despite the fact that both of them were working. Why should it not be 50-50? What are you doing to tell your brother, father, husband that, listen, it's time for you to also do the dishes?
Sure, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much for this very wonderful insight, ma'am. Very, very pertinent and relevant to today's day and age. Thank you.
We have a fun question from Hema asking, they're curious to know, how did the brand name come in?
So as I told you that we've started off with working with the self-help groups of Maharashtra, with some wonderful women, some of the most excellent food products that one can ever lay our hands on. And the name really, Azol, means the home of your maternal grandmother in Marathi. So what we are trying to tell people is this: ye tumhari nani ke ghar ka khana. This is your aji's. And that's really the taste of this, because we're making it in small batches. This is being made by women who are, who are using recipes that they have learned in their gaon from their mothers and grandmothers. So we wanted to evoke that whole nostalgia of grandmother's food, therefore Azol.
Okay, so it's actually Ajol. In Marathi, it would be Ajol.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. I'm not a Maharashtrian, so I don't get that right.
Yeah. And so, Apurva, is it only for self-help groups, or is it open to other women entrepreneurs making foodstuffs?
No, so it is open to micro entrepreneurs right now we have started off with one state, hope to expand it to other states. But right now it is for micro entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, and self-help groups, both.
Okay, because we work with a lot of women entrepreneurs and self-help groups.
Okay.
It's a social enterprise called iDobro Impact Solutions.
Okay.
And over the past 4 or 5 years or more, actually, I've personally worked with quite a few self-help groups to help them. Some of them are making food products, so I thought
sure.
It's a great listening to you, Apurva.
Thank you.
Ma'am, another question, very much of what you spoke, life opens windows of opportunity every now and then. How does one understand that this is the opportunity I want to risk and take it up?
Okay, that's a difficult question, right? So, of course, I don't think it is not very easy to just look at an opportunity and say whether I will do well, should I take it up, should I not take it up? It requires a lot of reflection and thinking. And I think the space that one should really, or the questions one should ask is it something that you would like doing? Not as an output, not the money that comes as a result or the designation that comes, but will you like to do this every day of your life? Are you good at it, or will you become good at it? And does society or the universe need it? If the answer to all these three is yes, then it's the correct opportunity. Will you like doing that work, the input, not the output? Will you like doing people again? And this is again something that I keep telling, don't think about the output, don't think about the salary, don't think about the designation, because that's just one day of the month. You'll feel happy when you see your check. Think about the 29 days. Will you like doing this? And will you be good at it? Do you think you will become competent at it? And 3, does the world require it?
Definitely going back to what you said, ma'am, that, become good at what you love and move forward. Just taking the last question from Naga. It is, suppose you are holding a leading position in a male-dominated space, but at some point of time, you have felt like a male person in your position might have done better and that you're not doing well. Have you ever been in such a situation, and how do you deal if you were in such a situation?
So I think there's no suppose about it. I have been leading organizations in male-dominated worlds for 32 years. So there's no supposing, I have been doing it. Have I ever felt that a male could have done it better? No, I have not felt that. Why should I feel that? I know I'm the best person for the job. I got the job because I was the best person. I know I have capabilities. I know I have competencies. I know I have skills. So I have it. I don't suffer from these kind of self-doubts, whether anybody else would have done better, could have done better, may have done better. I think I can do anything, anything better than anybody in the world.
Wow, ma'am. Definitely gonna, put it up saying that, how
All of you need
yes,
to do that.
I can do it. We
Yes.
will,
You can do it better than anybody else.
yes, we will chant and keep inculcating this in our lives. Thank you so much, ma'am, for answering all the questions and definitely leading us to, thinking and inculcating a lot in our day-to-day lives. And we as an organization, we always look forward for feedbacks and improvements. So I'm launching a poll and I would request all of you to, let us know what you think.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Lovely to have both of you here in this fascinating conversation. The love is pouring out in the chat boxes. So, you can see all of that, but I'll just end with what Surya has said. I'm the hunter, not just a nurturer. I'm the heroine of my life. I'm the fairy godmother myself. What a wonderful way to self-motivate. So thank you for that. Thank you, Navya. Thank you, Apurva, for being here and spending your valuable time with us. Thank you, Style Look, because we love to support entrepreneurs. In fact, Navya and we have been trying our best to ensure that even in the Diwali, we wanted to support every entrepreneur who's part of our community. We actually coined a little thing called this Diwali Shop Entrepreneur. Some of you may have seen that. We'd love to do more of that. And Navya was personally giving a shout out from her Instagram handle to all of these entrepreneurs. We'd love to do more of that. We'd love to have more entrepreneurs in our network and build more entrepreneurial aspirations. But wonderful, wonderful conversation. Thank you so much. We'll wait for all your feedback. But we know that you all have places to be in. Warm welcome to sort of ensure that whoever is not part of Aspire for Her, please do come in and become part of the Aspire for Her fraternity. Come in as a mentor, come in as an entrepreneur, come in as an entrepreneur. Thank you very much and look forward to having a lovely evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much. Bye.